One area where we can do a lot of good work is if we focus on those that are really in an unstable position, those that are simply struggling on a day in and day out basis. And so the number of people that experience financial instability within the borders of our country is a significantly high number. And it's a crisis that people should know about because it affects virtually households that are going to be right next to you or not that far away from you. And so it's important to understand what we're talking about here. In terms of financial instability, let's look at the numbers. 4.2% of households do not have bank accounts. 14.2% of households have bank accounts but still use alternative financial services and are considered underbanked. We also have a lot of individuals considered rent burden or mortgage burden or an Alice household, and I'll explain what that means. But what this altogether tells us is that there are a lot of Americans that are barely surviving, so there is no time to thrive. And just highlighting this is going to create an opportunity for a lot of people to improve. Let's talk about some of the aspects of what we say make someone financially vulnerable. First, if you're unbanked, that just means you don't have any bank accounts whatsoever. There's about 5.6 million households that fall under that category. Then we have a category that's called underbanked, and that means you have a checking account or savings account, but you still use some type of alternative financial services like a payday loan, pawn shops, whatever the case may be. If you are spending more than 30% of your income on housing, you're considered rent burden or mortgage burden. And so that's how we come up with that criteria. And then Alice is a program that tracks individual households and states that have asset limitations, income constraints, but they're employed. And so it really creates a difficult ability to get through on a day in and day out basis. Who's likely to be impacted by financial instability or financial vulnerability? Well, we'll see this oftentimes where we have Black households and Hispanic households, which are 6 times more likely to experience this, along with our single parent households. We have low income households that are 7 times more likely to experience this. And then we have people with disabilities 3 times more likely to experience financial vulnerability. So when we talk about financial instability in our country, we're talking about that likelihood impacting Black households more, Hispanic households more, people with disabilities more, single parent households more, and the living poor more. And this is a big concern when we talk about those that, have bank accounts, but still are forced to go outside of our traditional system. So 19 million households are underbanked. That's 14.2% of households. That just means that they use alternatives like payday loans, check cashing, rent to own. So they're just expensive alternatives. They disproportionately impact Black, Hispanic, and Indigenous households, and it just creates higher fees for the same services, just paying more to live and using just predatory rates uh, as a way of making money for people that are simply trying to survive. And how do you stay in this type of cycle? Because it becomes difficult. 42.3% of people say they don't have enough money to meet minimum account balances for banks, and therefore 33.4% say fees are going to be a big concern, along with the minimum balance. 2/3 of people are just cash reliant. They don't use banks and they don't really get into the credit system. And so that's a lot of people in the unbanked households that are simply just cash reliant. And then there's 15.7 that just don't trust the bank. So that's an awful lot of people that are just outside of our mainstream financial system that are receiving very little to no protections. What does that mean? It means that there's about 15% of households that had no mainstream credit. 78% of the unbanked households just lack credit or the ability to get it. And then we see these racial disparities where Black and Hispanic families are twice as likely to lack credit access, even if you have the same amount of income as your white counterparts. So this is something that we can look at and say it's changing or can change. We see that there's a digital shift. So now 50% of households are using some form of digital service like PayPal or Venmo or Cash App. So this takes away the need to have these banking services and they're good bank substitutes. And so it means that there is an alternative, like this $411 billion that's lost to financial instability. We have different ways of moving that so that way people can save some of that money. And why are they going to save money? Because most of it's just coming from fees, from predatory lending and alternative financial services that are just taking advantage of people that are on the fringes of society and have no reason to be taken advantage of. And we see that once we start to experience financial instability, it affects both our physical and our mental well-being. We come down and we really just start making tough choices. They're not choices, they're just impossible choices because you just survival decisions. It's not, what am I having for breakfast? It's will I eat breakfast or not? Will I eat 3 meals today or one? These are the types of things that we're looking at. And so it also starts to create the wrong habits and behaviors. If you have family or children in this circumstance, they may just continue to see that, and then it just creates this cycle of intergenerational poverty. And so we just need to create better opportunities to get away from it. So one of the things that we can do is we can realize that financial instability is extremely important. It creates opportunity, allows us to think, allows us to have our head in the right space so that way we can move forward. Equity is important, and the current system knows that there are inequities, and so we have to make that better. We have to give people their dignity back. Just because you fall outside of the mainstream doesn't mean that you have to be, dehumanized or allowed predatory lenders or predatory creditors or predatory loaners of money to come after you. And then overall, if we can just increase this, the overall economy does better, right? Financial stability creates a better overall economy. And so we can do something that helps everybody. Couple of things to do with technology. We can continue to just create or find more low or no fee banking options, always improve our financial literacy. Make sure we have better protections, especially against those that are being preyed upon. Use community support. A lot of communities know what you need, and so having community banking centers and micro lending inside of communities is a great idea to get people started. And then we can do all of this so that way, as a society, we're moving from people barely surviving into like generally thriving, finding ways to just continue to move better.